stand.
Is that a new official beginning?
Yes,
At a
yes.
ceremony you have to do?
Lots of practice. This is the Board of Selectmen's meeting for Thursday, July 13, 2017. And the first item on our agenda tonight is a request to update the sign at Bolton Corners, 563 Main Street, and I have to recuse myself on this matter. Come on up.
Come on down.
Hello, my name is Paul Conger. I am the general contractor for UMass. And
Wow.
nice to meet you. And the owners, I'll give you a copy here. Share if you would, please.
Sure.
Linda,
Thank
make
you.
life easier.
Okay, thank you.
So, in regards to the sign, it's really not going to change. It's not going to change in height or width at all. You can see a existing picture of the sign now and what we're proposing. So basically, we're just cleaning the whole thing up and making it more presentable. Doing so, we have to take the sign down. And doing that on the third page, I believe, we'd like to, or UMass would like to wrap the top part with a banner just saying, you know, UMass, with UMass Memorial Medical Group coming soon, and maybe with the phone number or something like that for new patients. So that's basically it, is really just cleaning up the sign.
Looks fine to me.
So the wrap is kind of a temporary thing? until
Yeah,
the new sign is
exactly.
up?
It was the most easiest way to do it.
Okay. And then it says here, possible drilling tap lighting fixtures in the background panel.
If you look at the existing picture right now, it's kind of gaudy, so we're trying to hide.
Okay, but
The
it's
look.
not an internal light bulb, you're just casting light down from the
That's
top.
correct.
Okay.
I have no problem with that, I think it's fine. So these guys are moving from 85 to here?
No, they bought that practice, but they've been looking to come in at Bolton and finally, you said, I thought.
Oh, that's a different one.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a different one, never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
That looks good.
Yeah.
Looks nice.
Renovations are all done, they're in the occupancy, they're not servicing people as of yet. I think they're working on the physicians, so.
So they moved into the bank location?
Yeah, the bank location, then we bumped out the back a little bit more
Mhm.
to get some more exam rooms in. So there'll be 3 doctors there.
And Don, does Mike Savager look this over too?
He does, right? Yeah, he does.
Yeah, I don't think you have a problem with it, because it's pretty much the same.
It's the exact same thing, we're not doing
Yeah.
anything but cleaning it up.
Yeah.
Great.
All right, well, I'll make a motion to approve the sign request at Bolton Corners, 563 Main Street.
Second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Did you get a building permit?
Yes, yeah,
Did you get that? You're gonna do it? Okay.
Yeah, they'll take it.
All right, and I'll give this to Mike so he has it.
All right, great, thank you very
Okay.
much.
All right,
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
All right,
Good evening.
Good night now.
Good night.
The next item is a request to release Chapter 61A property owned by Mr. Joseph Kovacs located at 23 Harris Farm Road.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just to review the process, the Board of Selectmen were noticed, as well as the Board of Assessors, the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission. The Board of Assessors have expressed no interest in the land. The Planning Board voted last night that they have no interest in the land. Conservation Commission was supposed to vote Tuesday night, but they lacked a quorum. But the members have been polled, and there is no interest from the Conservation Commission. So I did double check with Town Council, and Council did advise that even absent a vote from the Conservation Commission, the Selectmen have the authority to proceed tonight if there is no interest on the part of the Board of Selectmen. And if that happens, I've advised Rebecca that at the next Conservation Commission meeting, they should still vote that they, so we have it formally on the record that there was no interest on the part of the Conservation Commission.
And did we get a hold of Brian? Did we reach him?
But I've not been able to get a hold of her.
Okay. but everyone else, but Brian?
Everyone's fine.
Okay. So I have no problem with this, and I have no questions.
I'm fine with that, I don't think.
I don't think I have any questions.
All right. Then I'll...
There's a question.
Oh,
Martha Remington, private citizen, 447 Main. When Mr. Kovacs bought the home, did he know that there was 61A property on or adjacent to his parcel?
No, I did not.
And might I ask Mr. Kovacs why he has decided to release this from 61A?
Got divorced, and I'm losing the property as a result of the divorce, so I'm leaving town. As a result, have sold the house.
and I think, I'm sorry, but the question should be directed to the chair also. I apologize.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Might I ask Mr. Kovacs why he wants this released? He says he's gone through a separation, and why shouldn't the new owner respect this 61A agreement? I remember when Harris Farm was developed, and I believe that this is not the only property in that development which has 61A property. Or maybe I'm wrong, I'm just asking.
Well, I think, Martha, respectfully, I don't think it's anyone's business as to why Mr. Kovacs is doing what he's doing. It's his property, and this is what he's decided to do. He may have had some conversation with the new owners, and I don't think, the Board of Selectmen nor you have any authority to be questioning his actions.
With all due respect, Mr. Wysocki, I'm just asking if this was part of the agreement when Mr. Kovacs purchased the property, or did he make it 61A when he had the property? I mean, if everyone in town released their 61A property, I'm really not sure what it is, but I think it has
Okay.
something to do with conservation or preservation or farming. I was just curious. Thank you.
Yeah, my property that I purchased in 1998 was not under 61A at the time. A few years after purchasing it, we decided to start a gentleman's farm. We had sufficient acreage, 9.31 acres. There is 8 houses in this development, mine being the only one large enough to support a 61A separation from a tax lien standpoint because of the size of the property. I'm not familiar with all the abutters because of it being a backland lot. I have a lot of abutters in several other areas. I tried to market the property as an agricultural piece of property to get more for the property as a result. I had found an initial buyer, but that fell through, and then the second buyer showed no interest.
And this is under PNS now?
Yes.
All right. And so you feel comfortable procedurally we're in good, we're
I
fine?
do, yes, I do.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, just one further question. If this property, 61A, is released, does that mean there's no chance that it could be developed and a house be built on it?
I'm not a 61A expert, I don't know, but I assume that this is releasing it from the statute, and so there's no restrictions on it going forward.
The restrictions are the town zoning bylaws, and there's insufficient road frontage to separate the property into two.
But in terms of 61A, it's released from the statute, so
Right.
that's no longer a factor for the
Right.
new owners.
Right, but the owner has no ability to do anything more with it except leave it in its natural state or put it back in the 61A if a future owner decides to do that, whether it's agriculture or forestry.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
thank you very much. So I will entertain a motion to approve the release from Mass General Law, Chapter 61A, owned by Mr. Joseph Kovacs at 23 Harris Farm Road.
I'll second that.
All those,
So moved.
Second?
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks very much.
Thank you.
The next
Do we
item,
now have to vote whether or not we want to purchase this?
No, I thought that was part of the vote, I'm sorry.
No, the only part of the vote was to release it from 61A.
All right, then there should be a separate
It needs a
vote.
separate vote.
There should be a separate vote noting that the town has no interest in purchasing the property.
so I'll entertain a motion to, what are we acknowledging? The town has,
Declining to exercise.
We're not going to exercise the,
The purchase option, so declining to exercise the purchase option.
so I'll entertain a motion memorializing the fact that the town is going to decline the option it has to purchase the property.
Yes.
so moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye?
Next item on the agenda is the Hometown Heroes Banner Program.
Karen is expected for that.
We can, maybe take this later, or we don't need her here to approve this, right?
Don't need her here to approve it. She's done a very good job of documenting the plan, and I met with, actually Linda and I met with her earlier this week, and she's met with other departments as well. But as she says in the summary, a local community group, Bolton Local, with the support of the town of Bolton and the Parks and Recreation Commission, are proposing a new program called Hometown Heroes. The objective of Hometown Heroes is to create banners honoring Bolton veterans and active duty military men and women that will be hung along Main Street in Bolton Center. The banners will be placed beneath the American flags currently installed on the 22 electric poles on Main Street. The Bolton Economic Development Committee will purchase the brackets for the banners. The EDC has secured approval from the Selectmen and Electric Company to place the brackets on 56 electric poles throughout the town center. So effectively, they would piggyback onto that. Only when the flags are up would these banners be up as well, and then they would be taken down at the same time. And the flags are up twice a year. They're up from May 1st to July 31st, and then November 1st to November 30th. Which coincides with the American flag schedule on Main Street. So the proximity of Memorial Day and the proximity of Veterans Day are noted. Hi Karen, I just did your opening for you.
So we had a little bit of a greeting on the way in.
How are you, Karen?
Good, how you doing?
Good.
How you doing?
So I just walked through the summary.
Good to see you, Karen.
Good to see you.
So Don just read the first part of your submission, the first paragraph that outlines the program.
Okay.
And I've already gone over this with Don, so I have no questions.
I think it's great. It's a great idea.
Have you seen it in Leominster?
I've seen it in various other towns, yes.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I saw that online. There were actually a few other places
Yeah.
that have done it, so. They've been awesome working with this group in Leominster. I mean, they've given us every piece of information we asked for, so. It's just trying to figure out how to take that and model it so it would work here. And that's what we're working with the DPW with, and trying to figure out the banner size and things like that.
Yeah.
I think anything we can do to support honor the veterans is well worth it.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yes, sir.
Rick Merrill, Sugarwood. Hi, Karen.
Hi, how are you?
We've been neighbors for a long time. I was wondering if this applied to veterans such as my father, who was killed in World War II, killed in action. He was a lieutenant colonel and awarded a Silver Star. And his 5 grandkids were raised in Bolton.
Well, you know, when you put in a section on who would qualify, you know, we were saying that people who were natives or moved here, or people who lived here and then moved.
Okay.
But I think we can be flexible, right? I think the more participation we get, the better, and to reflect someone in your family like that, I couldn't see that being an issue.
No, I'm fine with that.
Any questions, Alan? All right, then I will entertain a motion to approve the Hometown Heroes Banner Program as presented in our package and by Karen Regan.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Great,
Thanks,
thanks
Karen.
for your help too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great, thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the town administrator report.
I apologize to the Board of Selectmen. I anticipated a Minuteman update tonight, and I'm lacking any news from the project, so I don't have anything. There is a meeting coming up, but I think we've scheduled the schedule of it, so I promise not to miss 2 meetings in a row with a Minuteman update.
Okay. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the Board of Selectmen business, and the first item is a request for approval of an additional $100 in longevity pay for services of employees who have accumulated over 20 years of service. And I have no issues with this at all?
Nope, and no questions. Good.
I will entertain a motion to approve an additional $100 in longevity pay for services of employees who have accumulated over 20 years of service.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is the review and approve end-of-year transfers from various departments to snow and ice account.
So those are all documented in the paperwork that we have. Again, very standard at the end of the year. We are very fortunate this year. One of the many benefits of the Governor's Municipal Reform Act of August, I believe it was 2015, is that we are allowed more flexibility within the year-end budget to move balances around. You know, we don't have the restrictions on us that we did before, so we're able to deal with quite a bit that we weren't able to deal with before. Snow and ice is in relatively good shape. At least we're able to cover it. Nothing has to go to the recap sheet. So I think where we'll be impacted, I don't think we're going to see as much return backs for free cash next year. But this is pretty standard. I don't need to.
I would agree. The typical transfers to snow and ice. I didn't see anything out of the norm. There's a couple minor ones. There was a theme around electricity, but we had done a whole mess of work on that to try and peg a formula and then just apply that across all departments. And we did that, and then we held it. So, I guess we'll revisit it next year to see. But I mean, that's again always a moving target, knowing what is going to happen within the national grid world, what they're going to set for a rate.
Right, and I'm always working to try to see where we have a point to try to lock in a certain rate. So, and I continue to do that. And for most of FY17, we had the same rate that we had the previous year, and when we switched over, it was a minor, very minor update.
Yeah, and to your point, I can't imagine, when everything is said and done, I can't imagine there's going to be much left by way of free cash to roll forward. I mean, I'm always interested in that number to see what it is, but I mean, this past cycle was pretty tough.
It was.
So the theme around electricity, was that just related to rates, or was it also due to weather this spring?
It just usage was up relative to what we assumed, and so at least 2 departments, came in looking for transfers to request money from advisory to apply towards their line item to zero that out. So they ran out of money.
So was that the library and the safety building?
Jonathan, I don't remember off the top of my head which one. It was, I was just picking up on the theme that it was at least, 3 different departments. I want to say one of them was town hall.
I think it was. Advisory really put a lot of work into the FY17 budget and did a lot of calculations on electric, well, not just electrical, but oil and propane as well, and made some assumptions and kind of pared back a little bit too, so the fact that we ran over it is, you couldn't tie it all to usage. We were
Yeah.
fairly conservative with our, or aggressive, I would say, with our budgeting.
Yeah, we're probably 3 years deep into, that, energy analysis, where we pegged usage numbers and we applied it. And then in this latest round, so therefore for FY18 that we just started, we have kept things flat,
Good.
so.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the end-of-year transfers from various departments, which were to police and DPW, to the snow and ice account, and the total is $216,287.66.
Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, Martha Remington, private says 447 Main Street. I noticed 2 years ago that when I started turning off the power supply to those electrical appliances that I had at home that use power even though they are off, it made a big difference in my electrical bill. And I was just curious if all the computers and printers and things that were at Town Hall, if they were on power strips that were turned off so that there wasn't this really unseen, but it's there all the time. These units use power even though they're quote unquote off, unless the power to those extensions are turned off. I was just curious, in Town Hall, do we turn things off or just put them on sleep, or turn them off but leave them plugged in to power strips that are on?
I'll refer that one to the town administrator.
We don't turn them off every night. It's not good for a computer to turn it off every night. That can lead to other issues. So they are on power strips, but they are not. Generally speaking, we turn them off on the weekends. We don't turn them off every day. And yes, they are on power strips that are not turned off.
Just an addendum to that, a couple of the
Just
computers.
identify yourself for the...
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
town clerk and private citizen, under Dashaway Road, Pam Powell. There are a couple computers we can't turn off because they're linked to the state and whatnot. So we have a variety of different things. A lot of things go in sleep mode, a lot of us turn our monitors off. So we try, we do our best.
All right. There being nothing further, there's a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next item,
You just need to sign these documents.
the next item on the agenda is the discussion. So advisory has to sign off on this as well. And today's for.
For snow and ice?
Yeah, we did.
I did.
I sign this one?
Yes, please.
The next item on the agenda is the discussion and possible vote on formation of Town Road Strategic Planning Committee. This is something that I put forward. We had discussed it maybe 2 months ago.
Okay.
And we were going, Don and I were to meet, which we did, and I have already circulated, or Don and I kicked back and forth a proposed vote for the formation of the committee, and I can read it. The purpose of this is the proposed vote for the formation of the Town Road Strategic Planning Committee. The purpose of the Town Road Strategic Planning Committee, hereinafter the committee, is to draft initial and subsequent recommendations to the Town of Bolton Board of Selectmen regarding the redesign of Main Street, especially regarding traffic calming, traffic speeds, paving, marking, sidewalks, ADA access, etc. The committee shall also consider the effect that any redesign shall have on all roads which quote-unquote feed Main Street. Number two, ideally, committee members should be familiar with road design, grant writing, road architecture, financing, engineering, construction, and town planning. The initial goal of the committee will be to have a budget recommendation delivered to the board by January 15, 2018 for the appropriation of initial monies necessary for the initial design and engineering phases of any project. The committee, number 3, the committee will have the authority to consider all prior reports and recommendations concerning Main Street and other town roads. Number 4, the committee's overarching goals shall be to better manage and calm traffic in the town and to ensure that the town's roads and streets are designed to be as hospitable as possible to human activity and interaction and to thwart the town's separation because of traffic. The committee, number 5, the committee shall give strong consideration to sidewalks on Main Street and elsewhere, to provide for ADA compliance and also to allow for as much pedestrian, bike, and non-automobile use as possible. And lastly, number 6, the director of the Department of Public Works and the chief of police or their designees shall sit on the committee ex officio. So I put this forward as a result of our prior discussion in order to better manage traffic, hopefully keep the town from being further alienated, geographically alienated, to preserve property values, and just to make the town a calmer, better place. And also, given our proximity to 495, to help out all our fellow citizens who live on the feeder roads, which are numerous as well: 110, Harvard, Long Hill, Wattaquatic, everybody that bears the burden of the traffic volume in the town.
As the chairman said, he and I met to discuss this, and it had been discussed at a previous meeting, and one of the things that we discussed was, I think we all know there's a lot of talent in town, a lot of talented people, and bringing some people in to maybe take a fresh look at things and come up with some ideas. Certainly can't hurt to try and see what comes of it. As a town administrator, I'm open to new ideas and like to try to encourage people. So as the chair said, he and I discussed it, and I'm fine with trying this and see what comes of it.
Brad Cody, I'm trying to figure out, I'll go town citizen on this one. 139 Nashway Road. What are you proposing for a budget?
I don't know, that'll be up to the committee to see what's needed.
Where will this differ from, shortly after the state walked away, you did have a large part to do with that, which a lot of what you list off seems like it would have been taken care of by that maneuver.
I disagree with that.
Welcome to it. How is this different than the 117 study group that was put in place shortly thereafter?
There's been three groups since 1972 attempting to achieve some or all of this. Within this, I made express reference to those other studies and groups. The last one, they were restricted, I believe, to the other two reports. And so this would be wide open, hopefully without too much money getting to some type of charrette charrette result, have a charrette of some sort, and have the town get some buy-in in terms of how it's going to look, what the effects are. Finances are a huge part of that. And the timeline on getting funding, we're going to have to be seeking grants. The town's going to have to buy in on whatever piece of it they're asked to put up. It's a big, long process, but it's routinely brought up, and You know, what inevitably comes is a TIP grant is 10 years in the making or thereabouts. Don and I have met with the DOT about that piece as well, but if we don't get going in some omnibus comprehensive way, it's never going to happen, you know, and we're going to have to live with the effects of
The decisions that were made in the past.
that's right,
Yeah.
or lack of them.
Well, I think, Brett, to your point, you know, I agree with you. I do disagree with my colleague. I mean, you know, the town is now going to have to cough up a significant amount of money over the next several decades to accomplish what the state would have been willing to do. But that water has gone under that bridge. We're done with that, and they're not going to come back. So really, what this is looking at and looking at the various studies that were done, and also maybe some other things, and let the voters decide, you know, if they want to, if and when and where they want to spend the money on what things. And that's basically where we're at now.
Yeah, it seems eerily similar to the town green. I mean, the chairman even used the word charrette. I mean, we heard that countless times on that whole process. So there'll be a group of people that have a huge affinity for this, and they'll rally their troops, they'll flood town hall, the town meeting, they'll get through their little part, they'll get a piece that they fundraised or grant wrote, and then they're gonna put the rest on the town with our budget. And like I said, that they'll flood town meeting to get what they want.
Well, but I think
It'll be ongoing.
well, true, and I think that it'll be up to the entire town whether they want to, what they want to fund, and if they want to fund it. I think the one thing that I think we need to keep under consideration is that we, the town of Bolton, do not have free rein to decide what we want to do with 117. It is a state numbered road, and anything that we want to do has to, if not most, if not all, but I would say a good portion of it will have to be approved by MassDOT and will have to be engineered to their standards. So they will still have a say in what is done, and, you know, just because we might want to put a helicopter pad in the middle of 117, the state may not like that idea. So I think, you know, there is some control, but, you know, to your point, you know, the state walked away, and if we're going to do something, we should do something, and let the townspeople decide what they want to spend. And, you know, Tom, you mentioned the TIP process, and I mean, the example of Clinton where they upgraded Water Street, that was a TIP project. They had to spend $400,000 up front to do preliminary engineering work, and it took them 10 years to get the money from the state, or, you know, from the feds through the state. So, I mean, that's just the process. So,
I get, the only thing that I can say is, you know, clearly, I mean, it is a massive project, and financially, I mean, we are already strapped in a huge way, and we haven't even talked about this latest potential land purchase.
no, it's true. But again,
So I would simply ask that, I mean, clearly there is going to be a massive need for a grant, but the money in those things, to your point, so hard to come by, you know, and all that analysis. My hope is that there's going to be a very clear partnership with the town, as opposed to we're going to go off and do our own thing, and then we're going to come back and say, here we are, and this is what it's going to be. Because the town square process was brutal on what was presented to the town and how it was presented. And the fact that you guys are still just starting to look over a P&S is amazing to me, given we had a May 30th town meeting.
Well, we actually haven't received a PNS yet.
Even better.
Mr. Chairman, not to get too deep into the weeds, but just as an FYI, and I'm not advocating this, but one of the tools in the toolkit if we need to get some engineering work done, more likely than not, the engineering, I believe it could be appropriate to use Chapter 90 money to fund that rather than doing appropriations for the town. Now, of course, the counter to that is there are roads that are not getting done. So as I said, depending on the situation, but that could be something that could be evaluated. And again, I'm not advocating deferring road work, but depending on what we're looking at, that is something the board could evaluate.
And the committee would evaluate.
Well, but ultimately, it's the board's decision.
Right.
I mean, I don't think there's a problem putting this together, this committee together, let them go off and decide and figure out.
Does it make sense to have the members of this committee not be anyone on Main Street? Conflict of interest?
Personally, I think there needs to be a broader mix. The last Route 117 study committee was comprised of almost everyone that lived on Main Street, and I think you need to have a little more diversity, personally. But, I mean, that's not what we're gonna decide on tonight. You know.
Before I go to.
I just want to, I mean, just in the conversations we had in the fall at the school with Barry Lorian at Mass DOT, you know, he was open, you know, we were discussing the intersection at Green Road and Forbush, which, you know, is pretty famous for, and as well as the exit from the school, you know, being pretty scary for a lot of different reasons. And, you know, he wants to see plans from engineers for that area before kind of going ahead, but he doesn't, so that's that's what he told us the process is. He wants to see that we're committed, that we've done some percentage of the engineer work. It's, what is it, 5 or 15%, not 100%?
No, so I think probably up to 25% would be the first step, I think. Nothing higher than that, and it may be lower. For some reason, I have 25% in mind, but I could be wrong.
But it is a process. It is a process where, I imagine those plans would go through several iterations before we came up with something to go forward with between the town, Mass DOT, and back and forth a few times.
Mr. Perry.
Al Perry, I think Brad is right about the ink is barely dry on the 117 committee study that we took the better part of a year to do. And starting another committee, it was unlikely to find different trouble spots. It's kind of, almost everybody who lives here knows what the trouble spots on Main Street are. And TIP grants too, the TIP grants take a long time to finally happen. And starting another committee to pretty much look at the same, identify the same problems before doing any other work doesn't really seem like a step toward getting anything done. I know that there were some recommendations from that committee that could help the traffic safety situation on Main Street, having to do with drawing traffic lines and narrowing lanes and so on, that probably could be implemented without grants, and would probably help. One could find out if they're not going to help. There's no doubt that the area around the high school, the 110 intersection, and 2 spots on Main Street, and doing something about the outlet from the school might have more to do with restructuring the in and out and maybe acquiring more property for that than it does about a real highway project. I really wonder if you're going to have a committee, maybe it should look at implementing the solutions that have already been identified by the 3 previous ones, rather than having a 4th committee that essentially makes the same recommendations.
Thank you very much. Martha? I can speak to that. if you'd like. I mean, those 3 other committees, I mean, that's essentially what this would do. I'm sure there's things that the 3 other committees' reports did not address, but ultimately, somebody's got to put them together. They have to find the grant money, they have to do the engineering, and go through the process required. So, I don't think those reports are going to fall on the floor. I mean,
Would it kick up after that?
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
what I would say that it is that those identified problem areas, but what we'd be looking at is a corridor-wide study and then the feeder road, kind of looking at that, and then drawing schematic plans that everybody can look at and comment on. And that would lead to, I think, a vote for money for engineering to do some percentage of the design, whatever Mass DOT requires for the TIP grant.
This is a much bigger effort than any of those.
Yeah, and do we have to do the whole thing at once? You know, you get a master plan and then you start picking the most important pieces. Some things might be corridor wide, such as striping or something like that, but some interventions might be related to specific intersections. So we just need a master plan to start working from, I think, going forward, and that's what I would see where we'd be ending up at the end of this.
Martha?
Martha Remington, 447 Main Street, Bolton. Why can't Public Ways and Safety Committee take some of this? I think of missed opportunities that we've had in the past, maybe 15 years ago, when we were told that a truck restriction on Wattaquatta Hill would not be possible for tonnage because there was no brook that Wattaquatta Hill crossed over, when there is a brook that Wattaquatta Hill crosses over, right next to Ballville Road, which could mean that was not a truck route. There was a tonnage limit to go to Berlin. Why are people going to Berlin and Clinton taking the next exit down on Route 62?
I'll refer that to Don, but we have investigated this as well.
We have investigated, I've investigated it multiple times, and the needle that we would have to thread to be able to restrict truck traffic is extremely tight. And even if we could do that, we would have to be able to declare where it would be rerouted, and then the town, specifically Berlin, would have to be willing to accept the additional traffic. And Clinton, that's right.
So we have looked at this numerous times over many years.
The natural barrier to that used to be when Smith Motors was there, cars were parked so that tractor trailers could not make a left turn onto Wattaquatta Hill. Also, when the Highland Commons was developed in Hudson, their traffic study stopped at Packard Street. And there should be a sign in Hudson that restricts truck traffic from coming up 85 into Bolton to get to 495, rather than going out 62 to 495. And this was an oversight on the part of people here watching what Hudson was doing. All that truck traffic comes up Route 85 to Bolton, rather than going out to the 4 or 5 stoplights are there, because trucks don't like to stop at stoplights. There are a lot of blue lights there. And that also forces a lot of trucks to come into Bolton up 85. And believe me, I live on Main Street and I know what's happening there. I don't want to have it prejudiced against me because I live on Main Street, but I know what's happening there. And it's unfortunate that they didn't do a surrounding community study when they put in Highland Commons to eliminate all that extra heavy traffic that's coming up 85 into our town. Now, a lot of it may go right on 495, but that doesn't help the people on the east side of Bolton in the Pan. Sometimes we feel like a separate hamlet here in Bolton because we're east of 495. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Chris Lineberry, 133 Nashaway Road, also a member of the EDC. And my comment is basically as a member of the EDC. I think that we'd like to see improvement in the scope of the study of this, that we'd like to be part of it. We'd like the businesses in town to know that we're looking at this, because what we're hearing from them is this is a huge problem. It's a problem attracting talent. It's a problem keeping talent. There's a perception outside of businesses in Bolton that this is an issue coming to Bolton. So these are some of the things that are kind of roadblocks, believe me, no pun, into bringing new business and another tax base into the town. It's a huge issue, and I want the businesses in Bolton to see the EDC working on that and trying to come up with some sort of at least have a voice in it. So I just wanted to make that comment, and I won't speak for the committee, but I'd be willing to volunteer as part of the EDC on this issue.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, this is one of quite a number of issues which hold back businesses from coming to town.
Mr. Chairman, I actually went at the EDC annual breakfast, which the selectmen attended, actually.
Somebody spoke some state official spoke exactly that point.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, I had a meeting with the CEO of Paragon to discuss specific concerns that he had, and we discussed options, but it all would fall under some sort of a plan like this. And certainly, whatever we do we just can't react as quickly as I'm sure Paragon would like, but I think it's important for Paragon and the other businesses to know that this is on our radar screen.
No, it's hard to hear, it's hard to hear. Yes, sir.
E.J. Herpeson, 203 Lovedale Road in Bolton. Mr. Chairman, there's a point that Martha brought up, which I would like to hear your answer to, which is what's the relationship between this new committee and the Public Ways Safety Committee?
I did reach out to Mary Chumo about this. She did support the document that I sent to her. She couldn't make it tonight, and she didn't express any objections.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adopt this as our vote to form the Town Road Strategic Planning Committee and to advertise per se.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is the update on the Community Preservation Act.
So I asked to put this on the agenda, this issue, looking for money for the town, seems to come up at every election, every election season. And so I just wanted to get started. I know that the state hasn't decided on how they're going to fund it this coming year. I know that from what I read, sometimes it's 37% match rate. I think it depends also on what percentage the town decides to commit, whether it's 1, 2, or a maximum of 3%. I guess why I think it's important is that we have a lot of old buildings. We're going to be doing the work on them, one way or the other, like the portico at Town Hall. Last year we've been talking about the old part of Emerson School. The windows, the portico there is coming up. So we have these projects, and I kind of see CPA as the state is trying to get us to create a fund for these types of projects, and so they kick in some incentive. And I also know that surrounding towns who've done it are very happy with the program, and they've done, some amazing things with the money. So I just think it's worth starting the dialogue about it, looking at what percentage we would want to do, and, just, even without knowing what the state's commitment is to the program.
So the Senate and the House both came through conference committee, ultimately submitted a budget to the governor. He's on the clock. He always has 10 days to make whatever line item changes he proposes to make. I don't know off the top of my head how many days he has left, but to follow up and, well, to support putting this on the agenda, I reached out to Representative Hogan. And again, at the time, you know, and we still don't know what the final budget's going to look like, but she did reach out to the executive director for the Community Preservation Coalition, Stuart Saginaw, and Representative Hogan and Mr. Saginaw have asked for time on the agenda for September 28th to come in and do a PowerPoint presentation on where the state is, or will be at that point, with the CPA. It's about a 30-minute PowerPoint presentation and then anticipation of Q&A afterwards, so it'll be at least a 45-minute agenda item for the board, so we can get the latest and greatest information as it comes out, so I think we can be well informed from that.
Yeah, but we have to get it passed in the town first.
We do, but we can get, you know, we can get up to speed on exactly where we are, we get the talking points. You know, I'm sure, you know, they have an FAQ or something like an FAQ, so I think we can get a lot of current information out, both for the selectmen and for the residents.
And how it would help.
Yes. So that's, I mean, I've got them scheduled, unless, you know, if the board, I think you're interested in having them come.
No, we should have them come.
So I've already got them scheduled for September 28th.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is the appointment to the Board of Registrars. And, oh, I'm sorry. Apologize, Martha?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I just have a quick question. When the CPC was denied by Bolton the 2 previous times, the funding for the CPC was based upon the $20 surcharge on every transaction at the Registry of Deeds for that town. And people thought that this would be a tax increase, and it was voted down. I understand now that that has changed, so it's not actually funded from those $20 surcharges on every transaction at the Registry of Deeds within the town. And I'm thinking, if it didn't pass twice before, when it wasn't going to be obvious that we were contributing more than those transactions at the Registry of Deeds, I can't imagine how the taxpayers in Bolton would now pass it, even though it would be great if it were passed.
Actually, it was and still is based on transactions at the Registry of Deeds, and one of the proposals that was in the Senate version of the bill, of the budget, was to increase that transaction fee, because the transaction fees were set when the CPA first came out in, I think, early this century. I don't remember the exact date, the exact year, but the fees have never changed. So that's one of the problems that we're facing now, that the fee structure is the same, and it's, what, 15 years later or whatever it is. So I don't know if that proposal made it into the budget or not, but to the best of my knowledge, this is still funded through fee transactions at the Registry of Deeds.
Right, and that money is pooled, all that money is pooled, and then apportioned out for those communities who are part of the Community Preservation Act. Bolton, the town of Bolton, through its residents, will have to make a contribution to that at the 1%, 2%, or 3% level. So, in effect, it will be a tax increase in order to participate.
So in other words, it's not just the tax, it's not just those surcharges on transactions within the town of Bolton. We'll still have to pay another percentage over, because I don't think it was that way prior.
It is. It was always that. It was always that way. But it's all the real estate transaction money is pooled into a general fund, and then it's apportioned out.
Yeah, I can't remember, having studied that twice before, I must have been really asleep.
No, it has always worked that way, and then to participate, the town has to make a matching contribution.
Right. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I think Stan just answered my question, because my understanding was those real estate transaction fees, that was the source of the matching money?
No. The CPA, there are 2 components the town would get back. There's money that's given by the state through this pooled real estate transaction money. But in order to participate, the town also has to participate through a match, a tax surcharge.
But the real estate transaction monies was the matching money that you got after you...
Yes.
After you contributed your town surcharge.
Yes, exactly. We're saying the same thing.
Okay, good.
Point of order, not everyone talking has been identified.
Sorry, I'm Nan Schnitzler, a reporter with the Bolton Independent and a resident of Meadow Road.
So there.
Just have a resident.
All right, so having said all that, we are on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have one
Oh,
more.
okay.
So I'm hoping you're gonna set the record straight about the
Yes, I'll try to
votes
set the record straight.
for the final time.
No, not the final time. because I've already
That's okay.
published my letter on this previously.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
Town meeting never turned down the CPA. It came up twice. The first time it was passed over because of complications that were introduced by town council at the time, Gary Bracken. Gave an opportunity, because of so many complicated changes that it became unclear, at least difficult to figure out what to vote on. The motion was made to pass it over, and I think everybody thought that that was the right thing to do. I was surprised that wasn't brought up the following year, but it just had to do with who was behind it. I will say that the trust did not bring it up. It was brought up by a committee that was created in response to visits by the state. The second time it came up, it was approved overwhelmingly at town meeting. But the state has an additional requirement that it pass a subsequent ballot within some number of days, 30 or 45. There being nothing else, it passed regular town meeting, and it passed by, quite a bit. But fewer than 80 people, as I recall, showed up at the ballot because that was the only thing on it. And people don't drive back from the job in Boston just to vote on a single thing. If it had been a ballot in which we make maybe select political selections and so on, we would have had probably a representative population. But it failed the ballot, but not the town meeting.
Okay, so we are going to move along, and we're going to have a PowerPoint on the 28th of September.
Yes.
So again, the next item is appointment to the Board of Registers, and this is the second time, and I believe it was requested that the town administrator go to town council for its opinion on chapter 51, section 15.
Yes. Yes, and town council's opinion, which was circulated to the Board of Selectmen and the town clerk, was that the Board of Selectmen may choose to make their selection from a list submitted by either the Democratic or the Republican Town Committee, in this case, the Democratic Town Committee, but they are not required to do that. So his interpretation was it was a may rather than a must do. So his opinion was that the town has the option to pick from one of the two names that remain from the Democratic Town Committee list, or could opt to go with the recommendation of the town clerk.
And so since that, my understanding is that the Board of Registrars has unilateral authority by statute to appoint an assistant registrar, regardless of the actions of the selectmen. So that would be up to the Board of Registrars, and Jennifer or the assistant town clerk could be appointed an assistant registrar regardless, for a one-year term, and then they would have the right to roll that over. And I did not have a chance to look at any case law, but I disagree with town council on the way they interpreted that. I do believe a list was submitted by the town Democratic Committee, and I believe we're bound by that list, but I want to hear from my colleagues.
Well, one, I think we've invested far too much time in this, and, I value the opinion of town council, and absent any special qualifications of the remaining individuals that were submitted on a Democratic Town Committee list. I think the suggestion by the town clerk of the individual that she's recommending probably is the best fit because of just the experience level and the understanding of the mechanism of what's going on within that organization. So I have no problem with town clerk's recommendation.
So there were other things in the documents that you sent about for this position that you needed to just do this position and not others.
The statute is very ambiguous. Don and I talked about this today as well. It appears that you can only serve on the one committee, on the Board of Registrars. But my reading on it is that prohibition appears to be an executive branch position or an elected, if you're elected to a board, that you could not sit on that board and on the Board of Registrars. There are two members of the Board of Registrars that sit on other committees. You know, that wasn't my issue, but I don't think that violates Chapter 51. That's just my opinion, but it was a tangential issue, so I don't think they need to be removed or anything. That was my sense of it.
So, there are two candidates on the Democratic Town Committee?
Yes, we had three. One was, we appointed her and she declined. She has, after her name was put on the list, but before we voted, she was, she's on other committees and just felt she needed to focus on those. So the two remaining people are Emily Byack and Vaughn Mackey. And I thought Mr. Mackey was going to attend tonight, but...
And he is.
He is, terrific.
Don Mackey, must accept on the road.
So I don't know if you... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so just wanted to see if you're willing to serve if we vote.
Yes.
So, you know, I'd be in support of nominating Mr. Mackey.
Second? I'll second that. And again, just to be clear, Jennifer would, the Board of Registrars would have the right to appoint her regardless. So, we don't need a vote on that, but we do need a vote on Mr. Mackey. So I would entertain, actually, it's already been seconded. Any further questions or? All right, then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. So the next item on the agenda is the hiring process for DPW director and treasurer.
So I sent out separate emails to the board earlier today, making my recommendations on how we proceed on both. For the DPW director, I do recommend and endorse that we follow the process that I laid out earlier, which is pretty much echoed by the process that was followed by Harvard. I was asked to look at that when their DPW director was hired. I did speak to the town administrator. He in turn provided me with the memo that I sent on to you. As I said in the email, the only aspect that Harvard does that I had not recommended was that a member of the Board of Selectmen sit on the interview committee. I have no issue with that whatsoever. The Board of Selectmen would like to vote to have someone on the interview committee. I'm delighted to have them, whoever they are. As I did make the note at the end of the email when they referred to potentially two rounds of interviews before you get to finalists. That has not happened here. Normally we do it in one, not precluding two. I just wanted to make the note that I've not experienced that yet. We have gone out, there have been times I have not been comfortable with any applicants. So I would basically restart the whole interview process and do a whole nother search. But with any given search, with one possible exception, but I don't think so, we've been able to do it in one series of interviews. But that's a nit, really.
So in Harvard, the committee did their final interview, and then they recommended 3 for the Board of Selectmen to interview.
I think there were 3.
Yeah.
I was thinking 2, but I think you're right. I think it was 3. And the Board of Selectmen did the final interviews with the applicants, and then they asked the town administrator what his recommendation is, and he gave his recommendation, and the board followed it.
So is that what you mean with the two-step process, or you're saying the committee, the interview committee has a two-interview process, and then it goes to the Board of
Yeah,
Selectmen?
they don't need to. I mean, they have at times, and it's unclear to me whether or not they did it for the DPW director or not, but they have at times done a series of 2 interviews before it got to the Board of Selectmen. So no, the Board of Selectmen would not be the second step necessarily in the process.
Okay.
Many times it would be, though.
And then I just had a question. Do we, with all employees, new employees, do we have a probationary period before they're fully hired?
We do in our bylaws, we do. In our personnel rules and regulations, we do.
What is that?
I believe it's 90, off the top of my head, I think it's 90 days.
Okay. And so that would be for this position, this position?
I mean, that would be, this position would be a contracted position, so that would be right in the contract.
Okay.
So I know you've expressed a lot of interest in this. Do you have interest in serving on the committee, or?
Yes, I would like to serve
Okay.
on the hiring committee.
You all right with that, Stan?
Fine with me.
Okay. So, and that's for the DPW director?
That's for the DPW director.
You wanna-
The final, we are closing, just a technical point, we are accepting applications through tomorrow, and then we're cutting it off. We do have 11 at the moment, which has exceeded my expectations, quite honestly, so I'm pleased with that. We left it open when we advertised because we had no feel for what sort of response we were going to get, and I didn't want to prematurely choke off applications. But we have 11 now. I would say several look very promising. So I'm definitely pleased with the field that we've got right now. I'll just leave it at that.
All right, so do we need some type of a vote, or?
Please, if you would just vote to approve the process that I submitted to you as far as the entire procedure, and including that there will be a Board of Selectmen on the interview committee, and that being Jonathan.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion that the hiring process as outlined by the town administrator and the service of Selectmen Keep on the hiring committee, which is, so it would be Selectmen Keep, the town administrator, who else is on it?
It would be Selectmen Keep, the town administrator, the town treasurer / HR director, the town planner, and a DPW director that I will select from a neighboring town who has no interest in applying and would be a completely independent viewpoint. I think it's important to have that level, that type of expertise on the committee, as they would be better able than anyone else to interpret for us the quality of any given technical answer.
Okay, so I'd entertain that motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And now the treasurer.
Yes.
Again, I sent a separate email out to you documenting where we are right now. We received several applications. There was one applicant that was a really intriguing prospect. And we needed to be nimble enough to move quickly. So we had an interview yesterday consisting of the finance team and me, so Donna, Nanachka, and myself. We were very, very impressed with the candidate, all 3 of us, not only from a technical perspective, ability to walk in and hit the ground running very quickly, but as I've said many times, when I interview for a position, the ability to fit within the town hall is also really, really important, because we are a small town hall. We all need to be able to work together. We all need to be team players. And all three of us felt that that was also a strength that was brought by the individual. I'm very high on her. The Board of Selectmen, again, need to be, or should be, the final word on this. The individual does have an offer in hand from another town. Given the situation, my request to the Board of Selectmen is twofold. One, to vote to have a special Selectmen's meeting on Tuesday, next Tuesday, for the sole purpose of meeting meeting the candidate, letting them tell you about herself. You in turn would have the opportunity to ask any questions that you may have of her. If you looked upon her favorably, then that would ratify the hire. If you approve of that process, what I would also like to do is authorize Donna tomorrow to make an offer to her contingent upon a favorable vote by the Board of Selectmen next Tuesday. I think that would give her the surety that she would need, that the town is very serious about her, and this is one more interview process to go through. There is, I can't say this enough, there is a dearth of qualified candidates out there for treasurer positions and accountant positions. We were very, very fortunate 2 years ago to have Ninotchka here that I was comfortable promoting. She's worked out great. A lot of towns have not had that luxury. So someone who's showing a strong interest in wanting to be here, I think we need to be nimble enough to be able to move on this. So I think it's important if we can accommodate that to meet next Tuesday.
So I support that procedure, and no problems with the Tuesday meeting.
I'm fine with that as well.
Jonathan, are you free Tuesday?
Yes.
Well, great. So would 5 o'clock, the candidate doesn't know this yet, but I'm sure she'll make herself available. So would 5 o'clock be acceptable to the board?
Fine.
Fine, okay.
Great. So if you would just please vote to ratify both those procedures, I would appreciate it.
Well, we've already done it, Dirk.
Yeah.
Right, no, I'm talking about both steps for
Yes.
for the treasurer. One, vote to have the meeting next Tuesday, and secondly, authorize me to make the contingent offer on approval by the Board of Selectmen next Tuesday.
So I'll entertain a motion to schedule a special selectmen's meeting at 5 PM on Tuesday, July 18, for the sole purpose of interviewing the candidate for the town treasurer collector's position, and also authorize the town administrator to make an offer to the candidate he described, contingent upon the selectmen's approval.
Also, the standard reference check and query check,
On
yes.
July 18.
Yes.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
will this person be the HR director too?
No,
And do you have a
not
plan?
at this time.
A plan?
I do have a plan, but it's a secret plan, and it's not on the agenda tonight.
So there.
But I do have a plan.
We
Now
have
you
minutes?
have, now you have your news.
No.
I can't talk about anything that's not on the agenda tonight.
So we have no minutes, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.